Hi, my name is Mike Rogers. I'm the morning anchor at KRLD Radio in Dallas, a position I've held for 18 years now, 31 years overall at KRLD. I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder. Yay, Dion. We're hoping for good things. I'm married, have been for, it'll be 34 years this summer. A beautiful, wonderful, supportive wife, Martha. We have 2 daughters, both grown. Started in radio in Grand Junction, Colorado in the mid-1980s. Came back down to Texas, then landed a job back in Dallas, worked at another station for about 4 years. They foolishly fired me, and I wound up at KRLD June 1st, 1992. You can do the math on that. It's a long time. You know, the scary thing, I started at KRLD in 1992, and the thing is probably 2 of the biggest stories that I will ever cover in my career. I got them out of the way like that. And one of them was, of course, Waco, the Branch Davidian siege. I was there for that from the beginning to the awful end.
Now we have KRLD's Mike Rogers joining us again. Mike, what's happened?
The building is in flames right now. 2 fire engines are coming through here. All of this is practically moot. The fire has completely burned down the Branch Davidian compound.
Later that year in 93, they sent me up to cover the flooding along the Mississippi River.
I'm in the Mississippi River, right in the middle of it. The flooded, swollen Mississippi River in a 16-foot aluminum boat loaded with some of the items donated by North Texans.
Unbelievable, some of the things that I saw there, some of the misery. They sent me up to St. Louis, and I was in St. Louis and on little towns across the river on the Illinois side, and that is to this day still the worst recorded flood in history along the Mississippi River. My biggest inspiration and or role model, people have asked me this a lot, and it would be plural. I think I'm going to say someone famous. Oh, it's Walter Cronkite or Edward R. Murrow, but it's actually the people I work with on a day-to-day basis. I learn something new from my coworkers, my colleagues, every day. It's like my grandmother used to say, she said, "You're never too old to learn." And she was 95 at the time. She's right. And I learned something every day at this job. I've always said there's 2 kinds of stories. There's the stories on one hand that people should care about, that they really kind of need to care about. And then there's the stories they want to hear about. And those are the kinds of stories that I like to do, the stories that are going to put a smile on people's faces and that they're going to remember and that they're going to share with other people. When they hired me in 1992, the news director at that time, Rick Erickson, he took me into his office, and he had a cassette of this reporter out in California named Mike Sugarman, who did the same kind of thing, really creative, fun pieces, feature-type pieces. And there was about 4 or 5 of his pieces on this cassette, and he said, "I'm going to leave the office for a minute. I want you to pop this in the recorder and listen to it, and I'll be back." Popped it in, I listened to it, he came back in and sat down, and he pointed at the tape and he said, "Can you do that?" Well, I was unemployed at the time, so what was I going to say? Sure, I can do that. And that's kind of how it started with the features. Michael Spears was the one who actually came up with The Other Side of the News, which I didn't like originally. I wanted the name to be Mike in Your Face, but he won, and he was the boss, right? And so he won, and it's probably a good thing he did. And that was it. And The Other Side of the News has been on the air every day since.
I'm Mike Rogers with The Other Side of the News. And when you hear people walking around the office saying things like this,
"It smells like a sewer in here,"
you know they must be cleaning out the fridge in the break room.
Wow, pro wrestling play-by-play at the Sportatorium. It just doesn't get any better than this.
Dad, when are we going to be there?
Yeah. Glad to be back on NewsRadio 1080.
Advice to aspiring journalists. The one thing that is fundamental that you got to learn is how to write. That's it. Period. learn to write. You can have the greatest story in the world, but if you don't know how to tell that story, it means nothing. You have to be a storyteller. You have to learn how to write. You know, KRLD is coming up on its 100th anniversary, I think, in the next year or two. The call letters originally stood for the Radio Laboratories of Dallas. That's the RLD. And, you know, it's one of those legendary 50,000 watt AM boomers that you can hear in half the country when the sun goes down. You can go just about anywhere in the country and mention those call letters and people will know. That's Dallas Fort Worth. I know KRLD. It's a legendary station, and I was honored to get the job here when I did, and I feel very honored to have worked here as long as I have. I'm Mike Rogers, host of the KRLD Morning News, Monday through Friday, 5 to 10, inviting you to listen then or anytime to NewsRadio 1080 KRLD, or you can listen to us on the Odyssey app on your smartphone.